Speaking of change, transformation, can we, at some point later in the semester, I'll probably take a few minutes to talk about this, but, we are in the middle. It's really a kind of an exciting time to be alive, and in some ways I feel rather envious of your generation because of the dynamic transformations that are taking place. And one is with regard to the climate. And nobody's questioning whether the climate is in a state of pretty serious transformation. People are questioning the degree to which human beings are responsible. Just keep that in mind. It's transforming. And in all likelihood, the future in 30, 40, 50 years is going to look very different than the world 30, 40, 50 years will look very different than it does today. And, people have a lot of fear about that sort of thing. I generally don't have fear. We live in the context of the environment and in life around us. So it's really, it's interesting and cool, actually, for me to think about how many opportunities you all have to participate in transforming the world in some really positive ways. And adapting to the changes that are coming. With that in mind, there's no singular weather event that we can point to ever. There's no single event that we can point to say, hey, this exemplifies, this is a cause of, what we're seeing and so on and so forth, right? Nothing is data in and of itself. That said, it seems pretty clear that what we're seeing, and sometimes this is media hype, right? But what we're seeing is a dynamic, is like, continually record-setting events, as we saw this past week. And, a lot of people, it's obviously quite a number of people died, but an extremely large number of people have had their lives turned upside down. And if you are from Puerto Rico and experienced Maria, if you are from the East Coast, the Jersey coast in particular, and experienced the hurricane 3 or 4 years ago, you know what I'm talking about. And I think there is a way in which sometimes we, kind of what I was talking about last class, we don't pay attention sometimes to things that we perhaps could pay attention to. Yeah, just a moment of recognition for the transformation, not just here, but also the cyclone that cruised through the Pacific. Like, wow, man. What I'd like to talk about today is this fundraiser that we do in this class. And we started doing this a number of years ago, actually, as a result of the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. And it was a particularly devastating earthquake. And for quite a number of years, students would kind of complain, not complain in a snarky way, but say, look, we have all these people together, we talk about a lot of issues, why don't we raise money or do something? I mean, why don't we do something, right? As a class, or a lot of us, we could really make that happen. And so, first thing I started to do was not use a textbook so that you didn't have to pay a lot of money. And so you'd feel more open about that sort of thing. If you're asked to do something, not give your own money to a fundraiser, but if you're asked to do something, you wouldn't feel like we're just squeezing time and energy out of you. But the other side was, after so many years of students saying this, I finally capitulated and said, okay, let's do something. Right about the time that the earthquake hit Haiti, and about 200,000 people were killed, and 200,000 were killed. And Haiti's only an island of, it's 10 million people in the country. So it's really devastating. And I been going back and forth to Haiti and have done a lot of work in Haiti, so I understood what that meant. So what we initially started doing was raise funds for entrepreneurs, for people who had a business idea to make money on their own, to do something. And people, people who have nothing are often the absolute most creative in terms of coming up with ideas and dynamic ideas. I mean, people who, I'm telling you, you can go to Haiti and you can find some little kid on the side of the road sitting on a tire, and the kid, maybe you won't have shoes on, maybe you won't have a shirt on, and how they have these crude rudimentary tools, right? Maybe a knife that's not very sharp, and if you give them your cell phone, because your cell phone, maybe the glass is broken, and you say like, hey, can you fix this? And the kid will, in 5 minutes, have a new face on your cell phone, and think like, how's this kid do this, right? Like, I have to take it to an Apple shop, and pay a lot of money for that. And there's this Haitian kid who's got it all figured out, or they'll fix the cell phone in some other way. And he's 9 years old, and you think, oh my God, right? So some kid like that might say, you know what I mean? What I want to do is start a business teaching other kids who are homeless how to fix cell phones. And hey, so, and I want to make this happen. And so then we raise money and we say, look, we'll buy you some tools and maybe set up a shop and we'll help you out and we'll loan you the money and then you pay us back. And so do all sorts of things like that, right? Which is pretty cool. So, you teach someone how to fish, or you help somebody buy a fishing pole, and you don't just give them fish. And so we started doing that, but that became just an immense amount of work. And so we stopped. So then what we did was we said, well, there was these youth in Haiti, and they said, hey, it was a youth group, right, a church group, and they said, yeah, what we want to do is, we're poor, and they are poor, right, this particular group. I mean, a lot of these young people eat one meal a day, right, so imagine, like, okay, one meal a day, right, but they said, but here's the thing, we're poor, but there are a lot of kids and people who are more poor than we are. And what we want to do in people in hospitals in particular, because in hospitals in Haiti, you don't have, if you don't know people, if you don't have someone to bring you food in the city hospitals or state hospitals, you don't eat because there are no kitchens. It's not like that, right? And so they would say, what we want to do is cook food, and we'll buy the food from local Haitian farmers, and then we'll cook it. We'll spend 24 hours making all this food, and then we'll deliver it to hospitals, and we'll feed people, some people who haven't eaten for 2 or 3 days. So, I was in May, so I went on one of these hospital visits with our team, and like you really can't imagine like really not eating for 2 or 3 days, right? Because you're from the countryside and you came into Port-au-Prince, and and you don't have family to cook for you, and you have nothing, and you really don't have anything, and like, okay, you say, okay, there are a lot of people who need to eat, and there are a lot of people, right? 600 million people, more or less, in the world will go to bed hungry tonight. But for these people, it mattered, for the people who received the food. So anyway, that's what we started to do. So you all would raise funds in a variety of ways, and then we would send it down to Haiti, and the youth would go to the market, and they would buy food, and they would do all sorts of, and they would cook it, and they would deliver it, and like just really awesome, right? And then at the same time, we were paying the college tuition for 2 young women who are just really amazing. Young women who grew up in a house that's half the size of this screen with their mother and their brother. And just were from a young age, we're just, those kids, maybe some of you are like this, but when they're 8 years old, they're going to go somewhere because it's just, something clicked in them, they're twins. And so they just one wanted to be a doctor, one wanted to be a lawyer, and we started to pay their tuition for high school, and now we pay their tuition for college, and they're committed to staying in Haiti and working. So we have different projects like that, right? So this is the Haiti project, and your job, what you all do, is you just raise money. And hang on, I'm going to do something. I want to say this before I put that up. You raise funds in your groups. You give, at the end of the semester, you give us the money that you raised. We put it in a bank account with an NGO called Poverty Resolutions. They do a lot of work in Haiti, and they do some work in Brazil, which is also where raising money for, and then we send the money down and we ensure that it absolutely goes where it needs to go. Okay, I ensure that. I mean, I give you my word on that. And I have nothing more than my word that I could ever give to you. So we don't care how much you raise. You will never, no one, there are only two people in the world who know how much money we raised for Haiti last year, for example. Jeff, and then another employee at World in Conversation who counted the money both semesters, and myself. No one ever knows. And the reason no one ever knows is because the moment we tell you, it becomes like a competition or something. So we don't care how much your group raises. It has to be a penny. We have an Excel spreadsheet. We have to put at least 0.01 in that spreadsheet. If your group can't come up with a penny, I'll give you a penny. I don't care, right? But you have to have at least a penny. You have to raise that somehow. You can raise a lot. I will not tell you how much over the past 10 years the group who's raised the most money has raised. And again, you will never know how much we raise as a class. Nobody knows. I don't even tell anybody at Penn State that. I just said that is confidential because you can't see this as a competition. It's not about how much we raise. There are far more people in the world where we work who need assistance than we could ever assist. It's not about that. The primary reason to do this is to build cohesiveness among your groups, so that you all can, just build, have a sense of, just do something together. It matters as a group if you do things together, you know what I mean? Instead of just sitting around talking. So that's the primary reason. The secondary reason is to do something positive for the world, okay? So it's do something positive for you and then do something positive for the world, okay? You have to raise at least a penny. And here we go. A few things. You can't sell things in here, primarily. You can't do we're going to do a bake sale and we're going to sell it in 119. No, you're not, because every other group is going to want to do the same thing. And then you're just giving each other money and no one's going to do that. If you have leftover goods or you have something you're trying to sell, you have some leftover stuff, then you can sell it in here. Leftover, right? Because you want to get rid of it somehow. You can't do GoFundMe sites because, come on, man, what's that? That's not a group thing. You know what I mean? You can't. No minimum, maximum. The project's not tied to your grade. How much you raise is in no way tied to your grade. Doesn't matter. You could raise five figures. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything illegal. We had a guy a number of years ago who happened to sell something, and somehow he just managed to sell a lot of it. I didn't find out until over a year later. I mean, there was nothing I could do. Don't do that. Don't put us in that position. So that's really uncool. I should have known when they raised the amount of money they did, however, that something was not right. You can't use the hub unless you have a student group that can sponsor you. You want to get a table or something. We're not a student group. You cannot get a table at the hub. You can use one of your student groups or something, but you can't use ours. We don't have it. There is no System 119 student group. And if you want to do something downtown, it's really easy. Just go to the Borough Building on Allen Street. It's the third or the second block, 200 block of Allen Street, and you just get a permit. It's very fast. It's very easy. You can do that. Ideally, you don't do a lot of work outside of class. You don't have to meet as a group many times outside. We don't want you to do that. We don't want this to feel like it's a pain in the ass. It should be uplifting. Right? It's not oh shit, we have to do. No, don't, man. If you see it like that, then just give your penny and move on, because that's not what this is. It's creative. So you can be creative. It's so you're going to start next week, by the way, in your discussion groups, taking 20 minutes or so to have your first conversation in group about, hey, what do you think you can do? What do you want to do? Throw ideas out. Just bounce ideas around, okay? Is that cool? Any questions on it? Just really fast, the project itself. We will collect money on the last week of classes. So we don't expect you to be meeting outside of your discussion group. You might put a group meet together, or you might do any number of things, but we don't expect that. Good? Okay, so let me say something about Brazil. So a few years ago, I think it was in 2013 or 2014, I was invited to Porto Alegre in Brazil to give a talk, a TED Talk. And I met this young woman, Mariluz. Who's Brazilian? Isn't there a Brazilian in there? Wait, who's Brazilian? You're both Brazilian? How do you say that last name? Is it Sousa? What is it? Sosa? Oh, shit. All right, wait, hang on. Oh, my God. It's really tough. I knew that my life would be... Hang on. It's really funny, right? I love this woman like she's my daughter, and I don't even pronounce her last name. Wait, how do you pronounce it?
Souza.
Mariluz? Mariluz? How do you say it? Say it again.
Mariluce.
Souza. Souza. Okay. Okay. So I met Mariluz, and she grew up. If I could tell you her life story, you would be. She's a hero. I mean, this woman, what she's gone through in her life, this young woman, you just couldn't believe it. You would never believe it. You can watch her talk online. It's translated. We translated it. But anyway, when I met her, she talked about her work in Rio. And she works in that's her and I, by the way. God, I just felt like I was like, I want to adopt you, right? She works in this favela in Rio, Complexo de Alemão, right? The German complex. How'd I do? Okay. And it's really one of the poor, it's a really violent, very poor, very violent favela. But she works with kids there, and she works with kids to give them hope. And her way of working with kids is around art. And she teaches them art. And she's not an artist. She's not a trained artist, but she became an artist. She taught herself just by being creative. And the work she's doing with kids is really phenomenal. And sometimes it's just the only fun these kids have. So sometimes, I personally have funded, like Christmas parties and like even all sorts of things, right? But I finally told her, I said, we're going to bring you into the Social 19 class. The project. So there's like her kids, painted these murals on the walls, right? Which is kind of cool. And here's a young girl painting another mural. So she has this favela art project. And here's some kids who just recently did this, right? So it's really, it's just immensely uplifting, right? So we raise money. Some of the money will go to her work in Brazil. Okay? For kids. The kids doing the work. This is Marina and Melissa. This is now the only project for which we are raising funds in Haiti. So the hospital project, we found another person to donate to that. And the entrepreneurs, we found somebody else to really take that over. So they're almost out of college. That's Melissa on the right. She's will be a doctor. She's doing her rotations now. And Marina on the left, who's studying to be a lawyer, and we're working to get her to work. Well, anyway, they're just awesome, and so we raise money to get them through school. The amount of the tuition for each one is about $2,000 a year. It's not that expensive. We give them $2,500 to buy books and everything. So that's where we're at. That's Lori there, by the way. Okay, now. Are we cool? Any questions about where the funds go? Are we good? I don't like to talk because we're on video, and I just don't want to say. There's not a lot I want to say about them per se. God, if you could just sit in their living room though for a hot minute and just see what they've done, you would be blown away, right? Who they've become. Any questions? Are we good? Are we feeling, if you have questions, wait, hang on. If you have any questions, maybe wonder like ethical concerns or moral concern or anything about this, about what we're doing, you can talk to me about it. I feel immensely confident. I feel really good. It's awesome to see the kinds of things that the class over the years has been able to participate in and make happen. So, yeah, the stories are just wild. Okay. Now, so U.S. budget, it's $4 trillion. What percentage of that budget is spent on non-military foreign aid to other countries? What do you think? What do you think? $4 trillion. What percent of the $4 trillion do we spend on non-military foreign aid? And when we're talking about non-military foreign aid, we're talking about this stuff. Natural disasters, population control, transportation, electricity, water, sanitation, refugees, housing, AIDS, HIV, food. What do you think? Go talk to the person next to you. What do you think it is? What percent? What do you think?
I said
2. All right, so take a look. When we ask Americans about this, most Americans will, when we say foreign aid to Americans, most people often think, how much money do we give in foreign aid? Many Americans will include military aid in that. But when we ask most Americans, they will say about 25%. That's the average answer, 25%, right? And so the United States, this is in millions of dollars, right? So we are the most generous of all because we have the largest budget and we give the most money by far. Look, you have Germany, UK, look where we're at here, right? In terms of the percent of money that we give, however, wait. Oh, dog, I don't have it. Oh my gosh. In terms of the percent, well, unfortunately, it is about 0.5%. And, Americans, we have this sense that, we're giving and giving and giving. But there are many other countries out there that give a lot more percentage-wise, right? Because in many ways, it's both about how much you give and it's also about the percent. And I talk about this, hang on. I talk about this because when we start thinking about helping other countries or helping our own country, it's really important that we have an understanding of what we're talking about and what we mean by that. Because, for example, if you were collecting money for something and you needed to collect money from, I don't know, like this group of people down here, and you got $10 from all of them, but then you later found out that a couple of them were millionaires and one of them was a billionaire, but they still gave $10 just like everybody else. Would you in your mind say that that was fair? Would that be fair? And it's neither fair nor unfair, but what happens is a lot of people say, well, look, but the United States, we give more than anybody else. I know we do. But if you're also by far and away the wealthiest, except for China, right? then what does that say? So apply that in lots of different ways, right? So I want to say something about Haiti. And hang on. Maybe I don't. Does anybody have any questions about this? I would plan to talk about Haiti. But I could do it at a different time. I don't need to. Just, yeah, Yeah, here. Can you pass that back?
So my question is that since we're raising, it's not really like a fundraiser, but since we're doing it for Social 19 for Haiti and Brazil, is it possible that we could do it for Haiti, Brazil, and for North Carolina since they just faced a hurricane recently?
Yeah, no. And here's why, right? Because it would be that way all the time. There's always somebody here who needs something, right? Some of you need something. Everybody does. It's not so much about need. It's about a continuous progress, a continuous project that we have going, and we won't raise that much money. If history repeats itself, it's not that much money. We already know exactly where this money goes and exactly who it will help and how it will help in a very progressive way, meaning help people who will then turn around and get back to the community. So it's really impossible to keep changing that over time. But I appreciate that. Yeah. Who else? Who else has a question? Let me also give you kind of just a sense of things, right? The average life expectancy in Haiti is 60 years. And let me just show you, let me just do this if you don't have questions. I just want to say a couple of things. Look, this is Haiti, right? So here's the coast of Florida. So this is what we're talking about. It's not very far away, 60 years. And 80% of the country lives in poverty. I mean, really, in poverty, pretty deep poverty. 54% live in abject poverty. And abject poverty is poverty where people have no chance at all of in any way moving forward. They will not move forward. They are barely surviving, right? We are talking people who are sleeping on the side of the road, people who have kind of some mud walls and straw, or maybe if they're lucky, corrugated aluminum for a roof, but sleeping on a dirt floor. Maybe a mat. I was in someone's home, and what they had in the home was a mat made of straw, and that was the bed. And it was probably about the size of this door right here. And 6 people slept on that mat, and it was hot. It was hot. This was at night. It was outside. It was 90 degrees, and I know inside that building of sorts, it was well over 100. So we're talking about abject poverty, right? We mostly those aren't the people with whom we work, because we're trying to work with people who are poor, but will also have a chance of moving forward in a way that they can then turn around and help somebody else. So Haiti has just not a chance of moving, right? And now, with Americans having just increasing calls for spending less and less and less, then this just becomes really incredibly difficult. Also, by the way, let me just do this since we're here. Look, It's not chance that Haiti's poor. It's not just chance. Yo, hang on. What I need right now? Yo, hang on. Yo, don't. I need 100% attention. We are 8 minutes, and then we'll take the quiz. I need 100%. You ready? Haiti was one of the most profitable slave colonies of the Europeans. In the case of Haiti, it was France. One of the most profitable. There's a lot of debate about how much profit they raised, but actually, I would say the single most profitable for France. In the 1700s, the average life of a slave was about 5 to 6 years. It was cheaper to go to Africa and get more slaves and bring them to Haiti and work them to death than it was to allow the slaves to live a life that would be in some way humane. So work people to death and make profit, made so much profit. And when you think about Europe and you think about the United States and you think about the immense wealth that was built on the backs of slaves, of a slave system, it's mind-boggling. So Haiti, one of the most profitable colonies. The Haitians did what the founding fathers did in the United States. Yo. Right. The slaves in Haiti rose up, and they threw out the French. It was bloody, it was violent, but they did exactly what we would want them to do. Am I right? If you knew that there was a slave colony off the coast of the United States, how many of you would support the slave masters? Nobody. You'd support the slaves. They did exactly what the founding fathers in the United States did. The problem was when they threw out the French, it was a big risk to the United States and to all the other slave-owning countries. Because if you have the Haitian slaves who successfully lead a revolution against their slave masters for whom they are working and making enormous profits, what's going to happen in the United States? Because slavery is like what Thomas Jefferson said. It's like holding a wolf by the ears. And its teeth are snapping at you, and you're holding it by the ears, and you can't let it go. And you can't hold on. You know you're not going to hold on, but you can't let it go. And so the Americans and the British and the French and the Spanish, they all came together and they said, look, okay, you hate slaves now. Here you are in Haiti. But the slaves had nothing because they didn't have the technology. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the things they needed, what they needed. And most importantly, they didn't have trading partners because all of the slave-owning countries, including the United States, decided, listen, we're just going to immiserate them. These slaves who won their freedom against their violent slave masters, we're going to immiserate them. And we're going to embargo the whole country, and nobody will trade with them. So even when the Haitians are continuing to grow like sugar, they were responsible for half the sugar, 2/3 of the coffee that was produced. And so even now they're producing it on their own. Nobody will trade with them. So you got all this coffee, you got all this sugar, but nothing can happen. And so Haiti becomes immiserated, just immensely immiserated and poor. So instead of growing, the first black republic in the history of the world, instead of growing and expanding, Haiti just gets poorer and poorer. And this is the story. You see, like, if you look at Haiti today and you see that it's really poor and you think, oh, well, these Haitians, they can't make things happen and what's wrong. But you have to study history. You have to see how they got there. And then it just continued. And then the French demanded reparations to the tune of what would be today, like $175 million, I think. So imagine these slaves who win their freedom in this country, and then the French say, listen, in order for you to do anything, In order for us to even begin to talk to you, you're going to have to pay $175 or $4 million to the French. And like, come on, man. The French. Look, 5 to 6 years. The brutal French. And like, yeah, but you slaves, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay them back. Of course, they didn't have money. And so Haiti just became more immiserated. And this is how the world is, my friends. Not everywhere. But if you don't study this stuff and you don't see it, you somehow you can never understand. You know, even today, like rice, rice. This $430 million, that's how much we subsidize our rice farmers in the United States. Haiti had, there's Haitian rice. It's really good rice and a thriving rice production. And $430 million, right? That's how much money, $350 million we gave Haiti in financial aid last year to help deal with poverty. That's how much we gave them. $430 million, that's how much we gave our rice. We subsidized our rice farmers, who then turn around and we force our rice onto Haiti. We force them to buy our rice. Took them to the World Court to say, like, no, man, we're going to force that on you. So, like, it's just like, I just wish I could download some of this stuff, but it's just a fairness thing. You all right? So anyway, that's why we work in Haiti. Cool?